Welcome back, pet parents, and welcome to 2025. We are in a brand new year. Well, not when I'm recording this, but when you're hearing this, we're in a brand new year. And I think that is super exciting. And what else is super exciting is that tickets are going on sale today. In fact, even though this podcast episode it starts really, really early in the morning, it might already be too late for the More You Know Pet Wellness Summit in Williamsburg, Virginia. And I bring that up because my guest today is Amanda Wilborn, who is the owner of the Nautical Dog and who is somehow she has lost her mind in putting on this event. Actually, it's one of my favorite events to go to every year. So I'm really grateful for her. And I love her store and I love bringing you indie pet store owners because I am super passionate about shopping local, shopping small, and shopping in indie pet stores for various reasons. If you've been with me for any length of time, you probably know them. If you don't, you're going to learn about them today. So I want to welcome Amanda Wilborn. How are you doing today?
Hi, thanks for having me on. I am good. Yes,
Yeah,
I am a little, things are crazy and chaotic. And yes, I lost my mind a long time ago. So,
that's okay. We'll just pull little pieces here and there and put some puzzles together and it'll all
yeah,
work out.
we'll figure it all out.
I was fortunate enough to attend the very first the More You Know Pet Wellness Summit. And then last year was the second one. I got to attend that as well. And I'm super excited. I'm planning to attend the one this year. And I want to talk all about that. But before we do, I would just like to hear a little bit about you and how you started the Nautical Dog, because I know, just like everything else in life, it wasn't like a straight path.
Definitely not a straight path. I think if anyone has ever seen those like diagrams of like what a business owner is, and it's like, people think it's like this, and in fact, it's this. That very much describes my life. And I think my life is still actually on that same, roller coaster path. But as far as the store goes, I don't have like this like really cool story and this like big inspirational thing that happened in my life. I was 20 years old and I had my first dog, like as an adult. That was my dog, that wasn't a family dog. And if you look in the back, it's the little corgi back there. And she was my first dog, and I loved her so much. And I had already been working in retail throughout high school. And one day I just was like, I want to open up a dog store. And, the store is very different now from what it was then because I sold cutesy things that I probably would never sell now, but it's part of my story and how I got here. And that's why I opened. And, we could talk forever about my store and how I got here. If you've been into the store before, which you have, if you're listening, you've been in the store, you know that nutrition is really my forefront of everything that I do now. It was not when I first opened the store, but, as a lot of corgis are, they're genetic little nightmares, and I knew nothing about them. And she had lots of allergies and issues. And, I went down the path of what to do. And, the first food that I ever sold in the store was raw food. And it's what I, did for her. And I saw it worked. And 18 years later, here I am and putting these big events on and teaching everyone about all the things. That's the very, very short story about me. There's a whole lot more. I do all the rescue work with all the animals, and I have way too many animals in my house right now, but I have two kids now and a husband, and here we are.
Yeah, well, and speaking of all the rescue work you do, I know you're always highlighting the shelters and rescues at your store, having adoption events, but you also expanded, well, you've expanded multiple times, but you have like what used to be, if I remember correctly, your original storefront is now your cat section, and you have in the front a cat cove,
I do.
which is so cute and so fun with all adoptable cats. And how many, I'm sure it will change by the time this airs, but
As
roughly
of
how many?
today, I think we're at like 300 and no, sorry, 430 some, I believe, maybe more. At some point we start to lose track of them. So yeah. So the Cat Cove opened like a little over 2 years ago, in July of 22. And yes, that was my original store in Newtown. before I expanded into a larger location. And it's named after Schwartzy. He was my first shop cat. I always joke that he was the love of my life, but I adopted him as a senior and he lived in the store. And when that space became back open, or vacant again, we expanded into it. And I had the idea of doing a whole store of cat merchandise, but then also essentially putting in a cat cafe. It runs a little different than most cat cafes do, that you don't have to pay for it to go in, but we get cats from our local shelter and you can just go hang out with them. If you want to adopt them, you can. If you just want to cuddle some cats, you can do that too. It's probably been one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done for the store. It's not something that makes me money, it's more of a passion project, and was kind of my way to foster more animals without bringing more into my house. Because at some point, my husband was like, "This is crazy," and it is. I have 11 animals in my house.
Yeah, I mean, I know what that feels like, and I can't honestly, at this point in my life, can't imagine going back to that.
It's very
But
chaotic.
you live and learn, right? But yeah, your store. So the Nautical Dog, you're in Newtown in Williamsburg, Virginia, and it is nautical themed. So there's a lot of blue,
There is a lot of blue.
a lot of blue, but it's really super cute. I see it highlighted fairly often in like Pets Plus magazine, and you won coolest store.
You are the
Yes, it was so fun, which it is. It's certainly been one of the coolest stores I've been into. And the growth of an indie pet store, I think, is something that most people in general don't, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but most people in general don't really understand like entrepreneurship and owning a business and how to grow a business. I think, and there's obviously in various different industries, they all have their own difficulties and pitfalls and all the things. But with an indie pet store specifically, being in the space, and you can tell me so much more about this than I could say, there's definitely, I think it's just that much more difficult. Pet parents, there's so much more education involved, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's not something that a pet parent most of the time is going to walk in and say, I want Steve's real food or I want green juice. Like they're not walking in saying, I want goodness gracious, right? They're not walking in knowing that they want and need these really high quality brands that you stock in your store. They come in thinking, I'm just going to buy a bag of dry food off the shelf. But this is a cool store to do that in. And so you have that hurdle of education. And so, how did you start like incorporating that when you were growing your?
So, I mean, I use my dog as an example, and I use my current pets as an example too. So, my philosophy is if I wouldn't give it to my own animals, it's probably not in this store. When I have lots of levels of things in the store to kind of fit, every budget and every need. But, you know, you're right. No one is coming off the street and saying, I want to feed my dog raw food like that. It doesn't happen often. When they do come in and say that, like my eyes just like get so big because it's so exciting for me. But that's not generally the course that it takes. So, it's usually someone coming and is like, my dog has allergies, and my friend or my neighbor told me to come in here that you guys know a lot about food. And they usually don't want food. They usually want like a supplement or some like magic pill to like knock it out. And it's such a journey to get to that point. So, it can go a lot of ways. We get a lot of customers, and then we get customers who come in who just want to come look at the cats, or they're just picking up some treats. And over time that evolves as well into the food conversations and things like that. So it's definitely not easy, and it's not, I think, what the average person would think. And in terms of running a store, no, we're not just selling like gifts that people can come and pick up. There's a lot of education involved, and there's a lot of learning involved. And I learn something new every day, whether it's something that I've read or someone that I look up to has told me about, or it's a customer who came in with a problem that I don't know anything about and I've got to do some researching about it. So it definitely evolves. And, and it's not just me, it's my whole team of, people who work for me as well, and always teaching them too. And, us all learning together.
Well, I know in talking to so many people, it's like what I used to do before this. I learned that it's generally like the lowest paid person in an organization who is the first like face to face interaction with a client. And so a business, for instance, like a receptionist, right? They're generally the lowest paid person in a corporation, yet they're the face of the business. So, like, an organization has to realize really, really quickly either you're going to put a lot of time and effort and energy into making sure that person puts on the exact face you need for your corporation and knows everything, or they're going to make your business look really, really bad. And in the pet world, I feel like our indie pet stores are almost like the receptionist, right? You're certainly not in it to get rich, but you are kind of like that front line with pet parents in guiding them and where they really need to be paying more attention to things in their pets' lives because, you know, sitting at home watching commercials on TV, you're going to think some giant company that's advertising and spending millions of dollars on the Super Bowl ad is like, that's the best food I can feed my dog. But then they walk into your store and they're like, there really is this like, oh my gosh moment of like, I didn't know anything.
I mean, and it changes so quickly too. I think our industry is is always evolving. There's always something new. Someone is buying someone out, and my world, I know we're airing in January here, but just this week, there's a brand of food that I carry. General Mills just bought it. It's all on sale right now in the store. It's dumped. And so those are things that happen here a lot. But yes, I mean, you're right. People come in, not only am I the face of it, but I have employees. And, the one thing that I think all of us have in common here is, we all love animals here, right? So, even if you don't know everything there is to know about, nutrition and different products, like we're all in this because, we love our dog or cats. It's easy to learn if you're passionate about it. And I think, I can speak that most of the stuff that work for me, a lot of them have been with me for a very long time. And, they're good forward facing people.
Yeah. So in your store, I know it's called the Nautical Dog, but you have a pretty big, you have a good size freezer section, a
Oh yeah.
pretty big like dog food section, treat
Yeah.
section. We talked about you do have the cat section. There's like a dedicated section for cats, and you also have. Tell me if I get any of this wrong, because you have like this really really cute section for like touristy things because you are in Williamsburg.
Sure.
You're in a very popular area of Williamsburg where there are a lot of tourists, especially in the summer. There's a lot of toys. There's a lot of, you have like a couple supplement walls, I think. You have a dog wash. What am I missing?
And treats. The bone bar is actually probably is the most popular thing in the store. So, we have the largest selection of natural chews anywhere around that I know of, at least in, my area.
That's awesome. Well, and those are, I was actually just talking to Lauren,
Yes.
Girls Gone Raw,
Yes.
and that's what we were talking about. Like, a lot of times these treats and chews are like gateway drugs
Yeah.
into getting into a healthier food, period, for your pets. So I love that that's like the biggest thing in your store, bringing people over to not the dark side, the bright.
All the good things that you might think are weird, but your dog is going to think is fantastic.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about how, if you don't mind, how you choose. We can talk about food, we can talk about supplements, whatever. There might be different criteria, but like, how do you choose what comes and what goes?
So if it's owned by a big company, it's donezo. I don't carry it. I won't even look at it. After that, I'm always reading ingredients, the labels, who owns the company, and I'm a big enough store where I can offer a variety of things. So I can have, my starting points, my medium points, and then like the absolute best. So, I think for me in the store, and you and I have talked about this before, I want to have an option for everyone. So for someone that's walking in off the street, they're feeding grocery store brand food, probably not taking them to the freezers to begin with, right? Like I don't want to
I
scare them.
mean, I would.
Um, that's our goal, like right, like that's the ultimate goal. but there's a lot of that's such like a foreign thing, they don't know. And so I don't ever want to scare someone, right? So, let's take baby steps. I'm always asking them, like, what do they feed, what are they comfortable feeding, what things are important to them, and then we kind of go from there. So, I have a lot of criteria in the way of, like, it can't be like, grocery store brand, Mars cannot own it, Procter and Gamble cannot own it. And then from there, I look at the company, see what they're doing, look at their recalls, you know, all the things that if you were shopping that you would want to look for or you would want to know, right? So I try to take all that guesswork out of it for you. You should be able to come in the store and know what you're going to buy, you know, isn't sketchy or got some weird recalls or weird stuff going on.
Yeah, well, and that's actually one of the biggest selling points for me for shopping at an indie pet store is that you do all of that research because it's a lot. Like,
It's
it's
a
a lot to stay on top of, just like you were talking about this week, a specific brand. And this huge corporation, this is the second big acquisition that they've had in a year, like in the pet food space, in the pet world. And so my understanding is that they're not stopping anytime soon.
No, and no one is stopping anytime soon. I always say everything is for sale, everyone's for sale. Um, if someone, walked in with any, a big number, everyone is for sale. So people say, well, what does that matter? It matters. When you've got these big corporations, I can promise you that quality is not at the forefront of sourcing and what they're putting in the food. If you think it is, you should go read your own labels of the foods you're feeding yourself and remember that those standards are higher than the standards our pets get. So, the people who are making, your candy bars, I'm sorry, should not be making your pet's food. And those are just things to look at, and they sell all the time. You've been into the store before, right? When you walk in my store, I've got posters lining the wall that show who owns what, and I have to have them redone every single year
Yeah.
because that's how quickly things change. And I think it's important to know who is making your pet's food. I mean, because they don't care. It's like some guy sitting on a board somewhere, and you know his
Well, yeah, that's
bottom line is his wallet, not your pet's health. And if they tell you differently, you know, we can disagree.
yeah, well, and that's actually exactly like I posted that on Instagram this week. When we're recording this week. Because when you start a company, you do have that passion. You do care about the product that you're putting into the world for people's pets to consume one way or another. And when it's just a huge conglomerate corporation, they may actually care about what they're putting in their own pets' mouths. But when they're sitting in that boardroom making decisions, they are just looking at what is the percentage of profit increase quarter after quarter. And
So
that's
where can
all.
we get this item cheaper? Where can we source it from cheaper? Let's not forget that a lot of these people that are sitting on this board are also sitting on the AFCO board, and they're saying what can and cannot be allowed in pet food. And I think if you are, listening or watching to this podcast right now and you don't know what's allowed in food per AFCO, please go to the AFCO website. It is all public information. You can see what is allowed in pet food. And these people that are sitting on these pet food boards or your lobbyists that are allowing this, ugh, I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
There's your answer. They're fighting for some of this stuff to be allowed in pet food. So they want it in there for a reason, right? You know?
Yeah. Well, and as a matter of fact, I saw this the other day, and Susan Thixton just posted about it as well. They are now letting consumers attend AFCO meetings for only $250, which I know is still a lot for a lot of people, but it's like literally half the price
Yes.
of what it used to be. So that actually is a big deal. And hopefully, it will make it easier depending on what actually happens with AFCO moving forward. Hopefully it will make it easier for more consumers to attend because As Susan reminds us all the time, consumers are the biggest stakeholders
Yes.
in pet food, and we're not represented in pet food.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yes. So speaking of like having to make those decisions, I about pulling something off of your shelf. I've spoken to a couple of people about this. Originally talked to BC Hinchin about this on the podcast, and Krista Fox, who owns Pug and Hound, and who I know you're familiar with. And it can be really, really difficult to make that decision to pull something off of your shelf, especially if it is something that is your biggest seller or close to your biggest seller. So, can you? I just like to reiterate this for people like it's not an easy decision for you, but you do it for the pets.
It's yeah, I mean it's no question, if a big company buys out something, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and have a, big sign on my wall that says Mars owns XYZ brands and then Mars buys a brand that I sell in the store and I sell a lot of it. Like I can't pick and choose which ones I want to put up on the board, right? So, it hurts a little bit at first, it always is a sting in the very beginning, but I've been around since 2006 and hopefully have enough trust in me to know that I am doing it in the best interests of their pet. And guess what? I don't sell that anymore, but hey, here's another option for you. I don't have all my eggs in one basket. And, I don't want to speak for Krista, but Krista and I are pretty good friends. And, I won't name names, but, a couple years ago, her and I both pulled our number one brand from the store with some things that happened. And when you sell a whole lot of a product and not just a little bit of it, and that's a big chunk of your money, and you see that and you're like, what do I do? But it again, it stings for a minute and then it goes away because I want people once again to come to my store. I want them to trust me, know that what I'm selling is not going to harm their pet, and I have to always stick with that. And if I lose that, then all of my credentials now go out the door, and I want it to stay there.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a really good point. And again, and I'm just going to keep saying this, why I'm so passionate about sending people to indie pet stores because that's exactly what you want. Like, you don't want I was gonna say you don't want your doctor to prescribe you something just because they're making money, but that's actually happening. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's not what people actually want. They want to go to their doctor, for example, and them to actually give them what is going to be the best for them, not just what they're getting the most kickback on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is crazy to think about, what the most popular foods are and how they get there. And again,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. Yeah. So with your supplements, I think that's something similar where how do you, because there is so many.
There's so many supplements. And fun thing, supplements are owned by a lot of these big corporations as well. And people don't think about supplements as being one of them, but they are supplements and treats and all this stuff. So, I've got my go-to brands that I love. Most of the supplements that I have in the store, I've used at some point, or I have a staff member that has used at some point. So we're not just willy-nilly, just someone says that I should bring it in, right? Like we use it, we've had experience with it, and that's how I bring it in. And there's a lot of supplements that I don't carry the full line of supplements from that company. I kind of pick and choose things and go from there.
So when somebody comes into your store, and as you were saying earlier, likely if they're coming in for the first time, they're coming in thinking, I need a supplement. Do you start off, I'm just curious, like, do you start off saying, yeah, I can sell you a supplement for that? Or do you say, you know, this supplement is going to be really amazing, but you're going to see the full benefit if we also improve the diet? Like, how do you have those conversations with people?
It really depends on the person, right? Like you gotta read the person to kind of, see how willing, they're gonna go. If it's me talking to someone, I usually take them right to the supplements. I show them, some other things, and then I will say, but what are you feeding? And if they tell me it's, one of those big brands that's owned by someone that's got bad ingredients, I'll say, this might help, but I think that really this is actually your problem. And if we fix that, you might not even need this supplement. And, you hear this all the time, and I say it all the time. You cannot out supplement a bad diet. You just can't. So I would rather see someone, fix the food, start there, and see if you even need the supplement. You know, I'll sell you all the supplements in the world, but it doesn't mean that you need them or your pet needs them in this case. So the idea is we're not adding all of these things in, right? Like if you're feeding a good food, you probably don't need all this stuff. And I think what's crazy, and I always bring this up, it's amazing to me how much money people are willing to pay for a supplement, but they're not willing to spend that on food.
Yeah.
And the food will actually cost less than the supplement will. So, I always bring that up too because people are like, well, that food's XYZ, but this supplement's only X, this. But I'm like, yeah, but you're putting this on top of the food that you're already spending. What if you just took that money and put it into a good food, and you fix all that? But not only are we gonna fix like this problem, let's say, the pet has allergies or you need a probiotic, it's got a gut issue or whatever. So, they're looking for a probiotic. We want to fix that. But, let's talk about the food that you're currently feeding and all the things that food could also cause, later down the road. So I think, I kind of went on a tangent here, but I think it really depends on the customer and, if they're willing to jump into food, we're going to walk back over to the food section and then, I don't like to give people too many things. Like I think it's important for when someone comes in, we don't overwhelm them, right? Like if they're feeding grocery store food or, your big box brands, they're feeding that and I sell them food and this supplement and this and a test for this. It's very overwhelming for someone who's never done it before. I don't ever want to scare someone away from doing better for their pets, right? So like let's take baby steps. Let's start small. Let's change the diet. Let's add one supplement and you come back in a month and tell me how your pet's doing, right? If
Yeah.
you're doing better, awesome. Let's keep it this way for a little bit longer. If you've noticed a little bit of improvement, but you've still got something else going, now let's add another one. Plus, like, I think it's important to know what's working as well, too. You add, 5 supplements in there and your dog all of a sudden is doing great. Which one is the supplement that is helping your pet?
Yeah. Very, very good point. And so, speaking of all of the education you do in your store, 2.5 at this point years ago, you had your first event,
Yeah.
The More You Know Pet Wellness Summit. And at that first event, Dr. Judy Morgan was the headliner.
Yeah.
And let me remember Angela Ardolino, Billy Hookman.
Yep. That was it.
That
That
was
was it
it
for
that first year?
that was it for
Okay.
first year. It seems so long ago, and yet like I just did it at the same time, right? Like it's
Yeah.
very yeah, so I say this story a lot. So I've always done lots of like little events in my store, where 20 to 30 people come into and that's in the store. I started off many years ago. I was doing viewings of
Oh, pet food?
pet food, yes. So I was doing, little, showings of that, having it in the store and people would watch it. I've had, other speakers like come in for, smaller events. Billy is one of them. And one day I just like was like, oh, I was talking to Billy and I was like, I should do like I would like to do a summit of some type of thing. And he said, oh, I think you should do it. And then it just kind of like got put on the back burner and I never thought about it. And then, him and I were talking again one day and he's like, I think you should do it. So I jumped in head first. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, it is like planning a wedding. I don't think anyone realizes unless you've done one of these events and put it on. I don't think people realize how many things go into putting it on. And most of the people who do these events don't have stores too. Like they're able to focus all their time into this. And I'm like, oh, I'm still running the store and planning this event. It is exhausting. But so very worth it. So yeah, that was the first one. And it was successful enough to do it for a year or two. And I did last year's. And
Yeah.
now there's
So, yeah, last year was,
well, really this year, 2024.
yes,
Well, yeah, yeah.
by the time this airs,
Last
last
year,
year. So you had Dr. Karen Becker, Rodney Habib, Angela Ardolino, Billy Hookman, and Dr. Katie Woodley. So we added a couple speaker spots, and that was super fun. And then So the Rodney and Karen did their first live
Yeah.
podcast right
Yes.
afterwards with the Inside Scoopers. Got to
That
stay.
was really cool. That
It
was great.
was. It was really, really cool. And it's just been like, obviously, I don't go to every single event, but I go to a handful of them, and it's definitely been my favorite out of all the events. I think because it's big enough, but it's also pretty intimate.
Yes.
So, you obviously have already announced who is going to be speaking for 2025. So, you want to tell me about who's
Yeah.
coming this year?
And really quick, I want to go back to something that you just said, to touch base on, talking about, it's big enough, but intimate, and I've struggled with this. You and I have talked about this because the 2024 summit sold out in 36 hours. The VIP event sold out in 18 minutes. I mean, I got to the store early that morning and I put up Eventbrite, where the tickets were on sale, and I was just like, my eyes wanted to explode. And I had people mad at me that the VIP tickets sold out, and the tickets never went for sale public. Like, you had to have had access to the tickets, which was signing up for it to get access to the tickets. And so we had some very angry people. Most people were understanding it. That venue holds roughly 200 people. And, it's big enough for me to want to control. It's also a block away from the store. So it makes sense in terms of, business. Fun fact, I tell people all this, the store pays for this event, as much as, we sell tickets and all that stuff. I don't make any money off of this event. I'm really doing this as like a passion project to bring information to people, and I want people to learn. So it kind of has to be by the store. But because it's 200 people and it's 200 people tight, like we're gonna love each other and be best friends.
Yeah.
Um, you get to feel close with people though, right? Our speakers, they're close to you, they're within reach. Like, it's not this like huge venue where they seem so far away. And like, in our world, like, these are the stars of our world, right? So I think it's cool to like have them accessible. I have gone back and forth on the whole, do we make it at a bigger venue? But the answer to that's no. It's going to be 200 people. And if you're listening to this, there's a good chance the tickets are already sold out. But if not, send me an email and we can get you on that list. That was my rant about the size of the space. But yeah, so for the 2025 summit, let me think about this. We've got Susan Thixton. So we've already talked about Susan Thixton. She is the truth about pet food. We also have Dr. Katie Kangas. She's coming from California. Rita Hogan, Canine Herbalist. So excited to hear from her. She has a book coming out, so we'll have her books here. I've been in this industry for a very long time, and I'm pretty well versed in pet food and supplements. Let me tell you what I'm not well versed in, and that is herbs, because like, so many things. And so I'm like, really, really excited to hear and learn from her. Who else? Oh my gosh, I'm missing.
Well, you're missing the big one. But has Amy Renz, right? Isn't Amy speaking?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm a burger. Amy Renz, Amy Renz was just at my store a couple weeks ago, actually, or a couple months ago for listening to this. And Amy is the CEO and founder of Goodness Gracious, and Dr. Connor Brady is coming all the way from good old Ireland. Which I'm so very lucky that I got the chance to meet him and his crew. A few months ago, they had a pit stop here in Williamsburg, and it was a very impromptu thing. So excited to have him back for longer than just a couple hours.
Yes. So, okay, I have so much like I really want to say about this lineup because first of all, Amy is somebody that I very unexpectedly have like kind of hit it off with and been able
She's
to.
awesome.
She really is. Like, just her mindset and how she looks at things. I find myself like asking her I ask way too much of her. I ask way too much of her. And what's really interesting about Rita is that, and I actually like texted her the other day because um, she her life is crazy with this book right now with her publisher.
Yes.
But I talked to two different animal communicators in the same week for two different animals, and both of my animals brought up that I need to be learning from Rita Hogan.
She's amazing.
I mean, I'm like, okay,
I have to
well,
like slow her down when I'm talking to him. Like, wait, 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 back up. Like, I didn't understand that. Like, that just went way over my head. But like, so smart and so knowledgeable, and I can't wait to get my hands on a copy of that book and
I know.
hear her talk for 1 to 2 hours about you know all the herbs and the simple things to improve. And these things also help us. As someone walking on two legs, they help us. It's not just for our pets.
Yes. So yeah, herbalism is definitely on my
Yes.
bingo card for 2025.
Good. Good.
It's on my bingo card. I'm doing it. I'm definitely
Do
doing
it.
it. Because I'm very interested in it as well. And Dr. Connor Brady, I am. If I don't get to meet this man, I swear.
Jill-
I know it's like I've had a couple of times been on the like I'm supposed to be somewhere to where I could meet him, and then it fell through, and I'm like,
July is coming. It is your time.
I'm very excited for it, and I'm very lucky. I know I say this all the time. I'm very very lucky that my family is there, so I make a huge trip out of it
Yes.
and get to stay and hang out, and then try to pull you out, but you're like you can't. You're just dead to the world.
Just a little bit. I'm dead to the world today. What are we talking about? Yeah, Connor is so cool. Like I mentioned, I had this like really cool thing happen a few months ago. You know, Dr. Judy Morgan's event was supposed to take place, and that hurricane came through, and the whole thing was rescheduled. So super unfortunate for her. I know it's coming back, and it's going to be fantastic when it does get to happen. But Dr. Connor Brady, Dr. Nick Thompson, Dr. Brendan Clark, they were all in the States. So funny story because they had posted online that they were in the States and they were looking for something to do and where should they go. Everyone's like commenting
Yeah.
all these things like where they should go. And someone commented, actually, Jessica, who works for Dr. Katie Kangas, comments. She's like, well, if you're in the States, like obviously you have to go to Nautical Dog. So there was all these comments on there, and I commented, and I was like, "Yeah, like come by, like I hope to see you guys." And out of all the comments, like I was the only one that they like responded back to. So of course, like I messaged Connor, and I had a lot of stuff going on during that weekend, and I was like, I need to know like where you guys are going, like are you guys coming here? And so in typical like UK fashion, like they think everything on a map is like it must be really close.
Yeah, because they were in New Orleans, and I'm like,
Yes.
that's a big.
So Connor emailed me and was like, Nick talked to Billy and, maybe, Billy can come because, like, I know that, like, he's near you. And I was like, well, like, he's
Kind of sort
close,
of.
but it's not like, he's not going to, like, hop in the car and, like, be here in an hour. He's not, like, that close. So I called Billy and I was like, hey, like, he's like, I know why you're calling me. Like, you must have talked to Nick. And he was like, Nick thinks I'm like an hour from you or something like that. He's like, because when they look at a map, Ireland, the big map, everything is relatively close, right? Whereas, the States, everything is far apart. So fun time. So Billy's like, yes, I'll come up there. So Billy gets here and they literally drove from like New Orleans to Atlanta or not. No, Athens, Georgia. Sorry, Athens, Georgia. And then they're like, okay, well, we're leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll be to you like around 5:30. They drove from Athens, Georgia, all the way to Williamsburg, Virginia in a
Wow.
day. Connor left his driver's license, so it was just Nick and Brendan driving. And they get to the store, and I had 48 hours to plan this like impromptu Q&A session with raw pet medics in person. And I'm like, people, this is never going to happen again. Like this is not ever going to happen. And so, it was a small event because it was so last minute, but man, those three are absolutely hilarious and so down to earth. I mean, like you just meet them and they were like, where are we going when we leave here? Like, let's go out. Like, they're just so fun. So I cannot wait for Connor to come back in the summer. And, I kind of wish the other two were coming too, but the event's been planned already. So I don't know. 26, y'all watch out. We might have all of Raw Pet Medics here.
You have no idea. I was literally on Expedia, like, what is a last minute flight?
Right. It was so awesome. Like it was crazy. And the fact that they drove that far to come to my store was really, really cool. I'm not so sure that they knew exactly how far it was gonna be, but they made it here and they, made a great road trip out of it. And I'm very honored that out of all the places they could have come and gone to, they came here. So it was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. So this year's The More You Know Pet Wellness Summit, is it you're gonna do so it's an
All day.
all day event, and Dr. Connor Brady is the headliner, and very, very limited VIP tickets, as
Very.
usual, very, very limited. And then you are doing the next morning a coffee talk type
Yeah.
situation again?
So things are going to be play out a little differently than they did last year. The VIP event is going to be the night before, so it'll be that Friday night, which will be better, I think, for everyone. It was a lot to do in one day, and that was just because of some of the speaker schedules. We had to do it all on that day. So Friday night we'll have the VIP event at the store. The next day the summit will be all day. The nice thing with having the VIP event the night before is that this summit is not really going to be on a short timeline. Like we'll actually be able to have a little bit of a longer day with our speakers. And then the next morning we are having our coffee talk. So as of this recording right now, I have not announced who my coffee talk people are, but you're going to be listening to this in January. Billy and Kelly are going to be here for the coffee talk. Connor's coming for the coffee talk, and there's going to be some other people coming too. So that's who's going to be here for the coffee talk. And Billy is the MC for this year. So it'll be super fun. If you know Billy, he's very dry, but I'm sure he will be roasting lots of people.
Yeah. Well, you know what? He did better last year, and so many people I know. He said so many people have come up to him and said like how much better, how much funnier, and he's like, I don't know what I did different, but okay.
Just roast some people a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
I'm very much looking forward to it, and hopefully, because I do post these at like 8 a.m., so hopefully there are some tickets left by the time you are listening to this. If not, then like Amanda said, get on the wait list.
Yes, they get on the wait list. Send an email to info@nauticaldogva.com. If you are listening to this and there's tickets left, you can shoot me an email and I can tell you how to get on that list to buy the tickets.
Yeah, and if you are anywhere in the world other than Hampton Roads, Virginia, and you are planning a vacation and you are at all looking at Hampton Roads, Virginia, make sure to stop in to the Nautical Dog because she really does have some really cute stuff. Take some pictures, take some video, post on social media that you what? Adopt a
Adopt
cat? I guess it depends on where you're heading back home to, but yes, adopt a cat.
We've had people adopt cats from Canada before. So there you go. Yeah.
So sweet. So sweet. Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you for all that you do. And
Thank you
thank
for
you.
everything that you do. July will be here before you know it. So, I give you a big hug when I see you then.
Yes. I can't wait. Anything else you want to tell people?
No, other than, if you're not in Virginia close to me, please, please, please shop at your local independent stores. I cannot stress that enough. Like, we care, we try really hard, I can speak for myself that I try to keep our prices, very comparable to everything online or in the big box stores. And, you know, we are out there doing the research for you and vetting everything and making sure everything is safe for your pet. And yeah, so please shop, take that extra minute, take the time to shop with them. They're going to look out for your pet and, you need these stores around.
Absolutely. That's a perfect way to end. Thank you so much, Amanda. You
Jessica,
guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next week.
see you soon. Bye.